start quickly introducing ourselves. I'm Ashish Bhadwaj here.
My name is Neelam Bedi Sond. I'm 1977 batch.
Alika Dalmia now. I'm a 1981 pass out batch.
Karan.
76 batch. We have a lot of friends here.
Anu Goswami, 76 batch.
Vivek.
Hi everyone, 1976 batch.
Vash Goel, I'm I think 64 batch or 60.
And Anuji.
I joined school in 1964, passed out in 1972, and Anju is 74 batch.
Okay, Rajiv, next.
76 batch, Karan, Ranjit, and all. I'm very happy and I'm very honored to see Subhash Goel sir.
Ranjit.
1976, like the rest of the group over here.
I am Sandeep Vad and I am 1989 batch.
Hi everybody, I'm Saket, again an 89 batch.
Ranveer Bose, and Anu, I was in your class in school.
I know.
Pretosh, hi everybody. Good morning, good evening, depending upon which part of continent you guys are. 80 batch.
Stay all. My name is Ashish Bharadwaj. I am an DPS Mathura Road alumnus and I'm working in the development sector. I welcome you all to Alma Talk, which is an initiative of DPS Alumni Network. Today in this series, Phir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani, our fourth talk show, I am joined by Shefalika Dalmia, my co-host.
Yes, I'm Shefalika, practicing in the Delhi High Court, and I'm from the pass out 1981 batch of DPS Mathura Road.
Thank you, Shefalika. Today we are honored to have our first guest, who is a lady, Anu Seem. And Anu is from Atlanta, Georgia. Before I go any further, share a screen and show few snaps that I have received from the school days snap. I don't know how many of you would recall seeing us stroll down the memory lane. So this is how Anu looks today. Wow. She has summited Mount Kilimanjaro recently, and the second snap, she's there with her daughter. Welcome, Anu. Pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you.
My next guest again is from the 1976 batch, Vivek Mishra. He is staying in Dallas, Texas. Let me share his snap also. So this is how Vivek used to look in school days. And time flies. And so here, this is how he looks now. So welcome, Vivek.
Thank you.
Welcome to both of you, Anu and Vivek. So shall I go off to a quick start? Because we have lots to ask you and we're very curious on that. So to you, Anu, first. So could you, Anu, tell us briefly about your journey in DPS and your time thereafter? Tell us about your family and how did you land up on the foreign shores and what are you guys doing today? I will start with you, Anu.
Okay, so story of my life in 1 minute. That's what you asked. Got it.
You could take a couple more, yes.
So I started DPS in 4th grade and pretty much spent my school life there. And my claim to fame there was that I was on the Students' Council. I was the Secretary of Students' Council the year that Rajiv was the president. After DPS, I went to LSR and then to Delhi Law School. Then I practiced at the Delhi High Court, much like you. Got married and moved to Minnesota. And what happened was I was so focused on moving to the US. By the time my friend said, let's go to the American Embassy and check out Minnesota, it was way too late to do anything about it. So landed in Minnesota. It was cold. It grew on me and I started to love it. And that place has been in the news for all the wrong reasons this year, but it was really a very gentle, kind place to be and to raise a family. From Minnesota, we did decide after some years that it was too cold and my husband said, let's move somewhere where it'll be less cold. And we would just take a map and look for places where I wanted to be in the government and he was in industry. And we wanted a place which had both, and we zeroed in on DC. So we moved to DC, and I started with the FCC there, Federal Communications Commission, and then in about a year, I got an offer with US Department of Justice, and I moved to them. Antitrust division there, so I sort of moved over to antitrust law. And from there, I got hired by the company that's now AT&T It was a smaller local company, and then they went on a serial acquisition binge. We became AT&T. I moved to headquarters in Texas. And in Texas, I worked on a few mergers. And when we merged with the company in Atlanta, I was asked to move to Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta. That's how I'm here. I have a daughter. She is in San Francisco. She lives there. She went to Stanford and has her undergrad and grad in electrical engineering.
You know, very wonderful journey. We can see it's a very, you know, you've achieved a lot in this. And we saw the beautiful pic of your daughter here. Well, how about you, Vivek? How was your journey?
So I joined DPS at the start of grade 9. So my dad was in the army. Many of us from the 1976 batch are army kids. My dad was in the army. I used to move schools every year and a half, 2 years. When I was getting into high school, they made a decision, and the right one, that I need to be in one place and not keep moving around. Got into boarding school, joined 1976, met many of these wonderful folks whom I'm seeing after so many years. My best memories, I think some of my best memories are during those 3 years of high school. You know, when I passed out, it was grade 11, not grade 12. Went on to Phir College, along again with many of my friends, became a chartered accountant. I started working at Xerox, stayed there a couple of years, and then sort of the lure of banking took me away from Xerox. I joined Citibank when the consumer bank was very, very young in India. You know, and I've been now in banking for over 25 years. I've worked for 3 of the largest banks, global banks, Citi, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo. I've had the good fortune during this time to, you know, work in 5 continents. I've sort of literally been in multiple countries, in 5 continents, which has been just a tremendous experience. And it was sort of work that brought me now to the US. I've been in the US now for for quite a number of years, and still in banking. And as you saw from the photograph, my wife Roma, she's an artist, and two kids. Aditya is also into banking, and my daughter is starting to be a biomedical engineer. She's up in Boston.
All right, thanks, Vivek. So we know a little bit. That's a huge body of work, huh? But you know, shifting to a foreign country can be very daunting. And so, what have really been your struggles? I'm sure most of us here listening in would want to know this. Anything that you'd like to share? How did your family adjust to the life there?
Yes, so you know the usual struggles in many ways. You know, move multiple countries, driver's licenses. Where do you put the kids into school? Learning a new language. I mean, we were in countries where English was not the first language. You know, I've been in countries which are been predominantly Arabic speaking or Spanish.
Okay.
And you know, if you move at a time when you're much younger, when you're in school or college, it's different than moving when you're older and you've got a family. In my case, we also had my father-in-law who lived with us. He passed away last year, but he lived with us for 20 years. And we made a decision that, you know, we would not leave him in India by himself. You know, my mother-in-law died suddenly when she was pretty young. So there was the initial challenge of making sure that he would be able to come along and all of his medical needs. So yes, you know, certainly challenges. But I mean, I will tell you, in terms of the overall experience, I would not do it any differently. And I think the other point that I would mention is that what we tend to forget is that the spouses, it's also tough for the spouses because we get immersed in work. So depending on circumstances, we get immersed in work, and the spouses need a lot of time to be able to make that adjustment. So that's the other aspect to keep in mind.
What about you, Anu? Your journey here, any struggles, anything that you'd like to share with us on this?
So I was the spouse, right? So I'll give it to you from that perspective.
All right.
I got married and moved there. And the first year for me was pure trial and error because my husband went off to work. He was gone from 8 to 6 maybe. And like, what do I do now? So it took me a while. The first year just took me a while to figure out what was going on and what I should be doing. And I had somebody I knew who had practiced with me in Delhi. He was a lawyer in New York, and I asked him if I should go into law, and he was very discouraging. He was like, law school is terrible. Law practice is hard. You won't enjoy it. Don't do it. So then I went around looking for other things to do, but my heart wasn't in it. So I went, and one day my husband said, well, like, he did law school and he's practicing. Is he that much better than you? And I got my papers in that day. Like, okay, no one's better than me, right? So, but then once you did that, there were all kinds of issues. I started LLM, and 2 months down the road, my professor said, oh, you're married and you're going to live here? LLM won't work, you need a JD. So in a heartbeat, I went from a 9-month course to a 1-year course. To a 3 years course. And then JD, I asked for credit for my India work, and they didn't know what to do with my request. Ended up meeting a judge who introduced me to the dean of law school and said, work with her, and then life eased up a little bit. Then when I thought I was all set, someone said, well, how will you get a job? You have no work experience in the US. So then I said, okay, then let's change this to night school and let's get a job during the day. So all kinds of shifting around, doing things, trying to find your place and your way. It all happened, and kind of like Vivek, I think I won't do it differently. I love being here. I've loved my life.
That's a great
But
answer.
first year was not easy.
So that's a lots of ups and downs, but you surmounted that. You know, we have a lot of alumni who will be listening in. Any piece of advice that you would like to tell them, to those who are wanting to migrate to US, starting with you, Vivek?
I would say, guys, pack up your bags and move if you can. If you've got that spirit and you want to do it, now is the time. I mean, I moved like 25 years ago. I've been out of the country for 25 years. The world has dramatically changed in these 25 years, and it is even a smaller place today. And thanks to social media, I think the new generation is so connected across the world. There are, as I said, I've been in 5 continents. There are lovely, lovely people everywhere. There are Indians everywhere. The Indian diaspora is so well respected. If you decide to move, you'll get adopted by some family somewhere. You'll be welcomed, and of course, each city is different, each country is different. My advice is, the world is fantastic. It's a great place. And if you've got wanderlust in any way you want to explore, especially all the young people out there, pack your bags and get onto that adventure. It is just fantastic.
So you mean take the leap of faith, cross that Rubicon, do it. That's what you say.
Take that leap. And the leap now is so much easier to take than it was 25 years ago.
Easier to do it now than the time when you guys were there. What about you, Anu?
Experience has been about the networks and networking. So every job I got, every position I got, I did all the hard work. I did that. I got the grades. I graduated cum laude. I got the resume. I got the research. But every job I got, every position I got, every promotion I got, the thing is, I found out the road was littered with smart, hardworking people. That wasn't what got me where I was. It's always a person who gets you there. And most of my network came from outside of the Indian group, because law is a place where there weren't that many Indians at the time. So it was friends from work, friends from, friends from all over, mostly from work maybe. But hiking, work, book clubs, you just say you're looking for something. I just had to say it. Most of these jobs showed up for me from somebody else even before they were advertised. So to me, I think networking's been key. And we didn't know the word networking. I just made friends, but that's what it is.
So stay connected is your advice. Build on your network.
Yes.
If you're willing to do that, then. All right, Ashish, anything you'd like to ask them as well?
Anu, I'd like to ask, you've done a lot of pro bono work as well. So tell us something about your pro bono work.
So I am chair of AT&T's Southeast Pro Bono Committee. And what I started this year actually was, we also added just community engagement instead of just pro bono, which is technically just legal work. This year, actually, I did a new thing called Legal Food Frenzy, which is we collected money for food cans for the Atlanta Food Community Center. And we raised, within AT&T lawyers, we raised something like $12,000 with our matching funds from AT&T. the legal community raised like $1 million, million plus. So that was amazing. Yeah, they did a really good job. We also did, I've now added the Atlanta Heart Walk. So hopefully we'll all be virtually walking, I think. But we added that to our list of things to do. We do street law, which is you go and teach students about law. We make contracts for them. We make them sit there and negotiate contracts. We talk about marketing law. We also go to visit students in schools who are thinking of careers and talk about legal careers. So a lot of that. On the strictly legal side, I'm on the board of Pro Bono Partnership of Atlanta, and the purpose of that is to help nonprofits so they don't have to go hire lawyers. So we do a lot of corporate work for them. They'll just come into us and say, can you do our bylaws? Can you do this? Can you do an employee handbook for us? We do the corporate work for them. And I'm also on the board of GAIN, which is Georgia Asylum and Immigration Network. That's more visas, court work, taking their cases to court. An amazing statistic is that in the US, most states, about 11% of their immigration applications go through and people get asylum. In Georgia, it's only 2%. So we have a really bad record here. So there's a bigger need for immigrant lawyers here. A quick plug, I am not on the Indian, I work very closely with an Indian organization called Raksha, and they help Indian people and Indian women, anyone who needs help. Amazing how well they do it and how quickly people get back on their feet. So that's also been amazing, and I've done some work with them.
Really great to know about your great work. Vivek, as a senior finance professional and now at the helm of affairs, I would want to know, what are your commitments to philanthropy, diversity, inclusion, no gender discrimination or gender equality kind of a thing?
Well, Ashish, that's such that's a really important question, important topic. Well, what I will say is that, so certainly, I mean, I've been very fortunate to have worked and continue to work in companies that have a great commitment to all the topics that you mentioned, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's diversity and inclusion. If you take the banking industry, certainly in the US, globally, they're very, very committed to it. But let me also talk about that more from a personal point of view. When so about a year ago, Roma, that's my wife, she and I, we were talking about when we pass away, which will happen one day, will we have any regrets? So we got in this really deep conversation, and we talked about all sorts of things in terms of what we had done and what we may not have done. And where we ended up was, the one, and we both agreed on this, is that one thing that we might regret is that we were just not generous enough. And it's not that it's not that we're not generous in terms of our mindset, but we just don't find the time to be generous. We're just so busy with our lives, and whether it was time back in India, whether it was time, whichever country that we've been in, I personally can look back at times where I could have been more generous, whether it was financially, whether it was with my time, whether it was my engagement with someone, engagement with friends. So that is the one thing that, she and I talked about, and it was a really good conversation because, I've begun to make some changes and hopefully, whatever time I have left. So I will say that philanthropy, which can be in so many different ways, it's really critical for us, for each one of us, to be able to take stock of what we can do, what more we can do. I'm often reminded by the great Martin Luther King's statement where he said, life's most persistent and urgent question. And so, you know how Martin Luther King always spoke with this great passion, directly looking into someone's eyes. And he said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for somebody else? So it's a great learning for all of us. As I said, I'm very fortunate that I've been in organizations which have a lot of philanthropic bent. In terms of diversity and inclusion, I've been on diversity and inclusion councils in every single organization that I've been in, continue to be. I've led many of the Asian heritage chapters. I've been fortunate to have done some interesting conversations around intrinsic diversity, which is diversity like Anu brings diversity as a lady. I bring diversity as a man. but we also have acquired diversity, which is just the skill sets that we acquire. And that is so valuable. And we don't talk about that diversity.
What I see is that we have this motto in our school, service before self. This is echoing that. Your philanthropic work, your pro bono work, all that you're doing, giving back to society, is a reflection of that. Is it something, the foundation that we've learned from our school, or that's what spurred it on? I'd like to believe that.
That's true.
So I'll carry on with you, Vivek, on the next question. As a first generation migrant, how often do you travel back to India? And while you are in India, what do you do?
So I don't travel. I mean, if you were to call my parents, they would tell you I do not travel as often as I should. I try and come once a year. As Rajiv knows well, a lot of my time, goes, especially in more recent years, with my parents getting old. My dad is 90, my mom's 84, her dad has Parkinson's, all of those complications. So I just end up spending a lot of time with them. And I do travel down to an ashram in UP. But that's pretty much, and then if I get lucky, at least get a glimpse of Rajiv sometimes. But it's usually spending time with my parents.
How about you, Anu?
It changed over the years how much I came to India and for how long. When my daughter was young and I was in the government, I came for like 4 weeks a year. It was just all your vacation. You took it day to day and came back to India. And once I got to India, the parents would take us out to Simla or someplace for like the real vacation. So we did that till I got to AT&T, and they looked at me and said, "You want to go for how long?" So that changed to 2 weeks. And but my parents came for a month 1 year, and then I went back for 2 weeks 1 year. Now it's pretty much 2 weeks for me, and mom visits me for a month. So non-COVID times. When I come back, I don't know if Kapil's on, but a plug to Kapil, he has a great place in Goa actually. So we almost invariably go to his place in Goa for like 5 days or something. And then the next 5 or 6 days are in Delhi. I have to tell you, I do in 5 days what people do in 20 days. I visit everybody, I'm running, I'm doing I get up at 5:30, I go with Kapil for a walk, and then I'm like out, coffee. My favorite thing is to come home at night and play Scrabble with the family. It's an old family tradition, and I keep trying to beat him till the last day. So it keeps going on.
Okay, so I'll Anu ask the next question to you only. So tell us, what is the main difference in living and working between India and USA?
Oh, it's easier here, honestly. I feel like life is a lot easier for us here. It's just so much easier in the US. We get 30 days to write a brief, 15 days to do your response, 15 minutes to do your argument. And 15 minutes oral argument, they includes the time the judges have for asking you questions, which means you have 2 minutes to make your case before they jump in. And it's just fast-packed, it's time, no adjournments, no postponements. You get a decision 30 days after that. And I just love that. I'll tell you, one time when I missed the India work environment was my very first brief that I did in Minnesota. I had 30 days to do it, but I was working on it till the last day. And my supervisor came and read it at like something like 2 p.m. and said it's all wrong. She said, "No, you haven't put the titles right, you haven't put the sections right, how come you didn't know this?" So we started working on it in the afternoon, and we worked through 10 p.m. Then the secretary wasn't there, so we did the binding, the typing, and I took it to the post office at midnight to get the stamp. Took it back, went to the post office, got my midnight stamp, I'm in my 30-day limit. Drive back in a snowstorm, pick up my daughter from my neighbor's house, put her in the car, and I look up at my garage and there's snow that's blocking my garage, and the snow had blocked my front door. So I knocked on my neighbor's door again and said, "Here, keep the kid, I have to shovel the garage door." So then I shoveled outside the garage, and the next door neighbor, luckily another one, heard me, put on his big thick jacket and his big boots, and he came and did it. My husband was out of town that day. So he came and we were done, and we were in the house like at 4 a.m. I went back to work after 2 days and said, never again. We have to have a procedure. We have to do better than this. But I remember thinking this would not have happened. In India, I could have just easily got an adjournment. But other than that, it's been really good. I like that pace. I like the style. It's so much better here, really.
That's very adventurous. But there's also a lot of emphasis on fitness there, Anu, compared to here. Like, I don't know, you've explored your yoga, you've done mountaineering, you even summited Mount Kilimanjaro. To me, that's such a great achievement. Isn't there more emphasis there in US on physical fitness?
I think so. I think a little bit. It's although everybody in India now is so fit and is so interested.
Okay.
So maybe that's changing.
Glad
But
to
my
hear that.
yoga is actually BK Iyengar yoga. My teachers are American, Caucasian, but they train in Pune. So that's an interesting thing. And hiking, I used to belong to Delhi Mountaineering Club, and then I joined it again in Atlanta. So I think there's a little back and forth.
There.
Yeah.
Vivek, for instance, is a marathon runner. I mean, he runs every day.
Yeah.
A great deal of running, isn't that, Vivek?
I hope I'm fit, but I enjoy.
You're fishing for compliments, of course you're not.
I enjoy running, and you're right. I think as a country, the US has an enormous amount of emphasis on fitness. I mean, there is no doubt about that. And I think, again, to Anu's point, I think in India it has begun to change. I mean, it certainly was not that way, 20 years ago 25 years ago when I left. So I think that's great influence for all of us. The other, going back to the other part of your question, is that how do I find working in the US different? The one point that I would make is that, and it is not just about the US, but I think anywhere outside of India, and again, this is my experiences from 25 years ago, and I think India has begun to change. But I do not believe that we have the same dignity of labor that we have in India, that we have outside in the rest of the world. It doesn't seem, at least it did not at that point in time, seem to exist in India. There's a far greater sense and dignity, irrespective of the work that you do, anywhere outside of India. And that is a change that I hope the younger generation, I think this younger generation is far more connected and is less complicated in many ways compared to our generation. Forgive me for saying that. And I hope that is a change that they will begin to bring. So going back to the earlier question, I think that is a clear distinction that I see between the US and India, and certainly the other parts of the world and India, is just that approach that we have to just fundamental dignity of labor, irrespective of the kind of work that you do. So that certainly is a distinction that I would share with you.
Okay, how about the short and sweet answers now? Now is the time, so buckle up. These are a few statements I'll read out, and we need to know the answers in true and false, except for the first one. The first one has to be a one-worder. So I'll start with you, Anu. I'll take you on. So the first one goes, which is a one-worder answer. What profession, other than the current one, would you have taken a plunge into? If not
Teaching.
a lawyer, then what? Oh,
Teaching.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You're all like, you knew this. Okay. Now the false and the true ones come. So you just have to say that, whether you think you align with this. The higher education, like the MS or the PhD, are very good in US, but not primary education.
False.
True or false? False.
False.
Okay. Okay, now the next one is, in India, you have a lot of investment options, to save tax, and averagely one ends up paying like 25%, but in US, the tax rates are higher, around 40%. True. Okay, great. Now on to the next one. So in India, the working places and stores are located near the Indian homes, while in America, the houses are separate from work and the grocery stores.
True,
And in US, the society is very formal. For instance, you may say hi to somebody in the elevator for 10 years and may know nothing about the person. But not so in India.
True.
True. All right. So now the baton to Ashish now. You can take on Vivek.
Yeah, Vivek. So what profession would you have taken if you were not in your current profession?
I would be a writer.
And what was the inspiration?
Well, I've always just instinctively loved to write since I was a little boy, and I do writing. I'm process publishing my first book. I've got a couple of others in the pipeline. I wish I could just do it full time. I've just been in banking, and that's been my world. But if I could make enough money and go back and do it all over again, I would love to write full time.
Okay, so I'll now the questions I'm going to ask you are those true and false type. First one is, like, in America, everyone is highly private about their accomplishments and failures.
It's a difficult one, but I would probably lean towards true.
Okay, fair enough. So my next one is, Americans place an emphasis on nature and the outdoors.
Oh, very true.
This case. So my next question to you is, Americans support the LGBT community in great numbers.
True, but let me just quickly clarify. I mean, in the sense when so great numbers relatively, but many more people needs to get onto that bandwagon. But it's certainly, but I would certainly say America, like in many other ways, is a thought leader on that, and so relatively, absolutely true. Yes.
Okay. And the next one is, in America, it's very difficult to tell who is wealthy and who is not.
I would lean towards true.
I'll just take a little break here, and we have another writer here. So, are you writing on something? Are you working on something currently?
Yeah, I've just sent in my third book to a couple of publishers. That's on domestic violence. And I very strongly believe that one should not abuse a lady, whether it's physical or mental or financial or sexual or whatever. So that's gone in. I don't know whether it's going to work for publishers or not. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. That's not a big deal. And what I'm currently working on is something that may interest Anu also. She also knows a lot about it. It's called a living will. The concept has just come into India.
Oh, yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
Actually, is because of my dad. He left a living will saying no ventilator, and I flouted it. So that's a guilt which I'm living with, trying to get over. Why did I flout it? But it's very difficult, when you see your own dad lying there, and the doctors say 40% chance he'll survive. Put him on the ventilator. You can't turn around and say he's written a living will saying no. So it's a very complicated thing. But I'm trying to address that in my next book, which I have already started. I've written about 150 odd pages on that. Let's see how it goes.
Thank you for sharing your insights with us. So I'll come back to the main section. Anu, I'd like to ask you, how do you celebrate the major Indian festivals in US?
So Diwali is probably, for years, I've been doing the Diwali dinner. It's just become a tradition. When I was in Minnesota, we were 3 close friends, and one was born there. She did Easter. The other took Thanksgiving, and I got Diwali. And I got it because my mom always brought all the decorations and everything for me anyway. So I was like the Diwali queen. And so starting then to now, it's just been, Diwali's been something that's celebrated at my home. And actually it's anyone who's around that year. So it's not just Indian friends, it's whatever friends are around that year. It could be small or big, but that's probably the bigger one. Other than that, I do, all I have to do on Rakhi and Bhaiya Do just to call my brother and make sure he remembers that he has to give me money or a gift. Put it aside, I'll come and collect it. But those are my other 2 big ones, and those are all for receiving. And that's probably my 3 big occasions.
Great. How about you, Vivek?
The Indian festival scene in the US, I mean, if you walked into one of these celebrations, you probably would not even realize that you're in the US and not in India. There are some really passionate folks here. So whether it's Diwali, Janmashtami, Holi especially, there are some really vibrant celebrations. We have a special Holi celebration that we do at a temple, which is Phoolon Ki Holi. So we actually celebrate with only with rose petals, and not with colors. Wow. So it's a great community event as well, because we have to spend a lot of time. We actually get flowers, frozen roses flown in, and marigold and roses flown in from India. And it has become really popular. It is quite spectacular. It's a lot of fun. But festival celebrations are very vibrant. Certainly in Texas, and they're also very religious in the sense that there's a true in many parts there's a true understanding of the religious aspect of the celebration, and that comes through quite well. So certainly in the US. Now, one of the challenges that we have is that none of them are holidays here. So Diwali is not a holiday, Holi is not a holiday, Raksha Bandhan is not a holiday, and so on, right? So that is one of the challenges that we work around, but otherwise they're quite festive.
I'd love to ask them some emotional questions if I could, According to me, this is the theme about Dil Hai Hindustani. You people have relocated to foreign shores, but how much of your heart is still Indian? How much of your Dil is still Hindustani? Some instances which will tell us how you stay connected, and something where your Dil is still Hindustani.
I think my Dil should be off the table. I mean, it's a given. My heart is Hindustani. That should be off the table, not even an issue. But I'll give you like a couple instances. So the one thing I was really proud of was my daughter, right? So we're off the table, but to raise our children to have their hearts in India, that's something we have to make an effort. And when my father got very critically ill, I called my daughter and I said, Nana's very ill and I'm going to India. And she said, well, let me come home and I'll come with you to India. Good, that was nice, but sort of expected. She held my hand the whole way. We came to India. But the part that surprised me was she went back. This was March, I think. She went back to school. She was in college. And she canceled her summer job in California. And she found herself 2 summer jobs in India, one at Medanta, one at Ames. I didn't even know she knew about them or she knew about their existence. And she said, I want to spend my summer at home in India. Found herself 2 summer jobs, moved there for the summer, stayed with the family. Now that to me was a bigger success story because that meant, I had raised her with her heart in Delhi or in India. So that's duty. That's one story. The other story is just
values that's gone down.
Exactly, and that's a hard one because they're raised here, they grow up here, they're raised here. So it's sort of happy it happened because you don't know if it'll happen. My other story is just a fun story. I went to Spain last year for my 60th birthday, and my friends took me, and we were booked on the last night in Barcelona for a dinner somewhere at a Picasso museum. And we had time in the middle. We took this bus to just do a tour around Barcelona. And at the first stop, we saw the seaside. And I said, can we jump off here and just enjoy the sea? So we all jumped off to enjoy the sea. And, so 50 euros down the drain. In 5 minutes, we were off that bus. And then I saw a restaurant and I said, oh, this is so nice. Can we eat here? So we went there. And he said, I can't fit you in. I have a whole group coming. They've booked the whole restaurant. And my friend pulled the birthday card and said, no, she really wants to go here. It's a birthday. So he said, I'll fit you in somewhere at the back near the kitchen, but you won't get the sea view. And we said, okay. So we went there for dinner. We're like stuffed somewhere at the back with the kitchen. And after dinner, they come out with this cake with the candles. And the whole restaurant starts singing. And because it was all one group. But they weren't singing happy birthday. They were all singing Jai Ho. I was like, oh my God, so that was just such a cool, they recognized the Hindustanis and they just went straight with Jai Ho. And we just had a big Indian party there. That was just kind of cool with a bunch of people.
You feel so good hearing this.
Such a nice recognition of our Indian heritage, right? Just
you feel just good hearing this. What about you, Vivek?
Oh, Hindustani, yeah. So, I'm going to connect your question to one of your Ashish's earlier question about what is your advice, what is your advice based on your experience to those who may want to travel? And I said, just pack your bags because, life has just so many, you can't plan beyond a point, and life has some amazing surprises. To us, I actually became more Hindustani when I came to the US because we came in association with, so there is one of the largest temples, which is in Austin, which is not very far from here, is actually being built by, so as for those of you who might have studied Indian mythology and tradition and religious tradition, there have only been 5 original Jagat Gurus ever in India. And this temple has been built by one of them. And we have learned about Hinduism like we never knew before. And and we as a family are very, very committed. Both the kids, one is in San Francisco and one is in Boston, as I mentioned, they both play the dholak, they both play the harmonium, they both go to satsangs and participate. They have a true understanding of Hinduism, which I don't think we would have ever got if we were in India. I'm just talking about ourselves. So for us, we are extraordinarily fortunate that our experience here has made us even more Hindustani. So that the bond, of course, back into India is strong, with the parents, with friends, and everything else. But I think the true spirit of being a Hindu or a true spirit of being an Indian, it's not about the religion in itself. It's about sort of the country. I think that for us, very, very fortunately, has come through just tremendously strongly here in the US. I almost sometimes think that the reason we were brought to the US was to find Radha and Krishna. And that is just, it's true for the entire family. It's just true for the entire family. I mean, my kids would never have grown up to be what they are if it wasn't for the fact that we came to the US and we were in Dallas and that our sanskars, I mean, it's all about sanskars, that our sanskars gave us that connection. And then we are able to do a lot of seva. We say, that also offers a lot of seva opportunities, just being connected to the temple, and a lot of work that we can do in so many different ways. So hugely, my heart has always been, will always will
You seem
remain
to be more Indian than most Indians out here. So your spirituality has rooted you to very Indian values. That's great to hear.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to know, would you ever contemplate relocating to India sometime at some point of time? Would you think about that, Vivek?
I do not think so. I do not think so. And the only reason is that I think that again, our scriptures tell us not to be attached materially, but that's a difficult bond to break. And I think one of our biggest material bonds is to our children. My parents, in normal course of things, will go away before we do. So our bond will become stronger with the children. It's unlikely the children will move back to India. And if the children remain here in the US, then I think we're most likely going to be in the US. And of course, we've got family, we've got lots of friends, so the connection will stay, but unlikely that we will relocate to India.
What about you, Anu?
Every time the stock market crashes, I say, take a deep breath. There's a house in Scenic Farm. It's okay. It's okay. But no, other than that, no, there's no plan right now. I think same thing like Vivek. My daughter's here, right? Unlikely that she would relocate to India, but a lot will depend on where she is. So it's the same thing. The bonds are with the children. You want to be closer to them. And so we'll see. It'll depend a lot on my daughter, really.
So you're part of the Indian diaspora, which is enriching the American life there. And hats off to both of you for that. Yeah.
No, I was saying what I do need to do and want to do is to make my time in India more. I need to definitely do something a lot more than the 10 days. I'd love to spend more time and, I don't know, maybe teach in India, something so that I'm more engaged and I have more time in India. But I don't know if I'll just completely relocate.
Okay, a very honest question. When was the last time you visited DPS? To you, Anu.
Very long time ago. I honestly don't even remember. It was a very long time ago. It was at Mathura Road and can't remember. We went a very long time ago.
Okay. What about you, Vivek? When was the last time you visited the Alma Mater?
So I actually visited, and I'll confess, not by design, but I happened to visit about 1.5 years ago when I was there. I was actually happened to be in the area, and I passed by school, and obviously sort of nostalgia kicked in, and so I sort of knocked at the door, walked around a little bit, walked back to sort of the boarding school area where I spent 3 years, so not planned, but I'm glad that happened. Yes, that was 1.5 years ago.
Okay, Vivek, tell me if you have any message for the DPS alumni community.
I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this. I'll pick on something that Anu said as well, is that I think that we we underestimate, or we certainly don't consciously deal with it. We sort of underestimate the power of friendship. And I could literally call Rajiv or Karan or a whole bunch of folks who are on this call for anything, any help that I would need, and they would drop everything else and help me out. And that bond, that friendship is tremendous. And I think we just do not do it enough justice in terms of staying in touch and genuinely getting the benefit of these tremendous friendships that we have. So one advice, sort of keeping in line with the theme, is that let's actively embrace our friends and our friendships, and there's just tremendous value there. So that's certainly one thought that I would leave you with.
Okay, that's wonderful. How about you, Anu? Your message for the DPS alumni community?
Not very different from what Vivek has said. I couldn't say it better, but it's like there is a concept that's called your personal board of directors, which is have the people that you trust and you can call on and who will help you make decisions and who will help you through life. And when you're living in India, actually it's easier. It's a built-in network. You know who to call. My personal board of directors, I have it, and some of them are from DPS. They're friends from DPS that I trust so much that I'll pick up the phone and call, right? So use our alumni networks, call on our friends. Everybody needs help once in a while. A lot of it is just put yourself out there and say, I need help. Every time I've done it, I've got it 10 times over, 100 times over, but I had to sort of put myself there and ask for it. So I think use the networks.
So with that, I would like to first thank you, Anu, and thank you, Vivek. It was wonderful to know about your incredible journey, and I'm sure it's going to inspire many of us and many other websites as well. With this, now we are coming to the last section. Subhaji, carry on.
Very interesting talk by Anu and Vivek. What we need to do is, I think we need to have a WhatsApp group, and also we need to have a website where I think we can give a little brief about us, about ourselves, and when did we pass out and what we are doing. I think if we really want to network with each other, it will be very nice. I think Zoom, you can take up to 1,000 people. So we could have, maybe a Sunday morning till evening a session. But I think right now, all of us have a very big circle. But as rightly said, that school friends are school friends, university friends are university friends, and we have no personal axe to grind. We have, it's like a family, but let's make it more active. I think these virtual meetings are better than the big get-togethers, because you hardly get to talk to each other,
Well, Subhashji, the leader that he is, his questions are always going to be very targeted and deep. So he will make you search for yourself the answers. So all I had to say was that, yeah, both of you, Vivek and Anu, you are very articulate in sharing with us your backgrounds and how you've evolved over the years over there.
It has been a pleasure hearing you guys. Commendable, I would say. Anu, especially, I loved your sensitivity about your children, your daughter, how she responded and how she helped you out, because that speaks volumes about, the upbringing you've done to your children. Amazing. I think I have got all the appreciation for you guys, one. Secondly, you said that initial years of your life were very struggling in the sense. So I think that is with everyone. Vivek, to you now. You are again from army background, so challenging personality. Then when you talked about your wife and you, again in the sensitive times, thinking, that what next? That shows, that you still have that Hindustani, your sanskaras in with you, and the way you have raised your children. The religious acumen they have, staying there. So I think all the best to you, both of you. It has been a wonderful, I would say, a wonderful hearing you guys.
Now, this is not for my girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. This is for my ex-passion, which would have been my passion. कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जिंदगी तेरी जुल्फों की नर्म छांव में गुजर न पाती तो शादाब हो भी सकती थी। ये रंजो गम की साही जो मेरे दिल पे छाई है तेरी नजर की शुआओं में धो भी सकती थी मगर ये हो ना सका।
Ronnie, you're the next one.
Not at all. I won't take much time. I just think it's a great session today. Wonderful hearing from Anu and Vivek and all the experiences they've had.